Alright, so we start by taking out the drive shaft here. This could be a simple 2 11mm bolts right here. There's going to be 4 total. 2 on one side of the strap and 2 on the other side of this U-joint here. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to show you how to take out your rear axle and your leaf springs and able to get ready to go ahead and restore your rear frame section. Now this video is sponsored by Kroil, and we're going to go ahead and use Kroil on pretty much every single bolt that I got to take off of this thing because this truck is rusty and I do not want to snap any bolts. Now we're going to go ahead and spray absolutely every bolt down here. We're going to spray our shock bolts down, our U-bolts down. We're going to spray our brake line bolts down from the brackets to the actual brake lines themselves because we do not want absolutely anything to snap on us in this process because we are going to be reusing a lot of these bolts. Now, of course, if you guys don't know, you're going to go ahead and let this sit for about 10 to 15 minutes. And once that 10 to 15 minutes is up, you're going to go ahead and take all your bolts off that you want to be done. Some of these bolts are going to be on there soaking a lot longer than 10 minutes because it's going to take me longer than 10 minutes to get to those bolts. But that's about the rough timeline you're going to want to give it. You do not have to use any heat with this product. It's a great product. It does awesome. And you know what? I can't express it enough. I have a great partnership with them. Make sure get yourself a can. So all of your shock absorber bolts here, the one on the bottom brackets that I'm taking off right now, and these are going to be a 13/16 socket and wrench, as well as the ones on the top. These also are going to be a 13/16 on the top brackets as well. Mine are definitely quite a bit rusty, and these bolts look like I am going to be replacing when I get these all taken out and go to the hardware store. So if you're like me and you're in a rust belt here, one of the best things you can do is go ahead and wire wheel the bolts that you need to take off. And right now we've got 2 bolts for these brackets that we need to take off. So we're gonna go ahead and wire wheel these down to make sure they're nice and clean. Now our axle is free floating on our leaf springs. We're gonna go ahead now and take out all the brake lines. We're gonna take them off of the rear axle and just kind of hang them out of the way for right now. I may disconnect them completely. We'll see when I get to that point. Kind of just rolling with the flow. But before we go ahead and disconnect that down there, we're going to disconnect this one up here because I do have the Russel stainless steel braided brake lines. I've never actually installed this section right here. So while we're doing this process, we're going to go ahead and disconnect the brakes from up here, and we're going to replace this when we put the new one on. Now this is going to be a 14mm. So I'm using one of my wife's potting buckets here. It was the only one in the garage right now that didn't have any holes in it. So we're gonna go ahead and let that sit just like that. Because we are running uphill above the brake controller or the ABS module, we don't have any leaking right now. So it's actually pretty nice. Well, now that we have that off, we can go ahead and take this off. It's a 13mm. So we're gonna go ahead, go down on over here. So we're gonna go ahead and take this one off. This is also a 13mm. So now we're gonna go ahead and take out this bracket here. This also is a 13mm. And we're going to take it off. And then again, I'm just gonna throw it right back in there for when we go ahead and take care of the axle. Next, we're gonna go ahead and take our banjo bolt off on the back side from the caliper. That's gonna be an 11mm. Next, we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing. 13mm for the bracket. Bolt back on. And this rear banjo bolt, again, is an 11mm. All right, now our next step for removing this rear axle, we're gonna go ahead and have to take apart the dreaded emergency brake. If you ever had to do this, it's kind of a pain. I hate doing emergency brakes. They are definitely a pain. One of the easiest ways to do this, the right way you're supposed to do this, is you're supposed to go ahead and take apart your brake drum, not your brake drum, your brake caliper, your rotor, take this off, and then you adjust your emergency brake backwards, give it some slack and it comes off. But for right now, I'm just gonna go ahead and take a hammer and a screwdriver and get it out. Now it does damage it a little bit, the little plastic piece here, but it doesn't damage it enough to where you can't reinstall it. That's why I do it this way. It's just quicker and it's easier. Not recommended, just easier. You helping? Here, let me see this.
Echo.
Thank you.
Echo, Daddy.
Thank you. Alright, so now we've got the emergency brakes off. We got all our brake lines off. We're ready to go ahead now and disconnect the U-bolts. We're going to go ahead and drop the 4 bolts on all the U-bolts. We're going to go ahead and put the floor jack underneath the axle and just roll it on out. And then we'll lift the axle up and put the axle on some jack stands for the time being. Now, these U-bolts are only about a year old, but I'm not going to reuse them. The reason why you don't reuse U-bolts is because they're pretty much a torque to yield. I want to say it's like 270 some foot-pounds. It may even be 320 foot-pounds, but they are a torque to yield type style bolt, and you do not want to reuse them once you take them out, because then when you go to retorque them, you are risking ruining the integrity of the metal on that U-bolt. So unfortunately, they're only a year old. They're actually in pretty good condition, but you know what? We're gonna go ahead and not reuse them because you just don't want to do that. And that, my friends, is why you always do safety first. You always take your precautions. You always do your steps step by step. You don't rush yourself. You take your time in case something like that happens. I should have had 2 jacks underneath it, but I only had the 1. Not a huge deal, but it's always, that is a good reminder for everyone watching this video right now, that you want to make sure you take your safety precautions. You do everything step by step in the process, that you want to make sure you're never underneath something that heavy, something that can really cause some serious injury to yourself. You know how I always preach, try and get a second set of hands? This is one of those processes that you're going to want a second set of hands. Now I did do a removal and install of a rear axle similar to ours on a 2500 6.0. But now, I finally got my axle out of the way. We're gonna go ahead and take out our leaf springs now. All right, leaf springs, pretty simple. First bolt over here, 15/16. So this back one's a 13/16. If I get it on. There we go. Now this plate here can just come off. This is gonna go separate to powder coat. So we got the drop shackle over here disconnected. Now we gotta just punch this one out. My bad, I forgot to record this. This is a 15mm holding these leaf springs together. I do want to note in here real quick, I had to put a vice grips on the back side because this isn't really nut at all. So just keep that in mind for when you have to take these apart, if you're taking them apart or not. And here is that bolt. You can see here, it's just kind of like a knob at the end. Now, when you are doing your leaf springs, please keep in mind, one, either wear gloves. I really should be wearing gloves. That's a habit I gotta get better at doing. And also eye protection. I'm sorry, you guys. You guys can fry me in the comments. I'm sorry. It's something I should get better at doing, especially when working on really rusty stuff like this. But anyways, when you're working with leaf springs, please, please, please be careful, because these will pinch the absolute living it out of your fingers. They will hurt, they will pinch your hands, they will pinch your skin when you're taking them off if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. So keep that in mind when you're removing your leaf springs. They will pinch you and it's gonna hurt. All right, so I got that last leaf spring off. Kind of gave me a little troubles there. I ran out of battery as well. But anyways, I just kind of pushed it out and pried that bracket out a little bit, and then it kind of just fell out. Just for future reference, if you're gonna do this, I probably could have just cut the bolt off. Been a little bit easier, but I didn't want to do that. So, but anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and get all this cleaned up because I'm gonna take these leaf springs apart once again and get those ready for powder coat. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean all this stuff up real quick here, and we'll see you guys in a little bit. All right, so I'm cleaned up. I've got my area cleaned up. We've got the axle stowed away over here. We've got the frame absolutely ready for exactly what we're gonna be doing, and stay tuned for that because it is gonna be a very interesting process as to how I do this. I'm really excited about it, and realistically, a lot of you guys watching will be able to do this exact same process as I am doing. Now, yes, it took me a while to get this all taken out. For some reason, this week on the channel has just been kind of sucks. Like, we have the issue with the lights on the LB7. We kind of ran into some issues here, but not real minor issues. They all are. I did figure out the LB7, so stay tuned for that. But anyways, like I said, as always, thank you so much to Kroil for sponsoring today's video and more videos to come in the future. I have a great partnership with them, so make sure you go ahead and check out Kroil at Kroil.com. Make sure you go ahead and check the link below for the merchandise. I do have stickers and t-shirts right now with a lot more to come, so stay tuned for that. We'll see you guys in the next video. We've got some sunshine out now finally. The last two videos have been gloomy. It's like fall has been coming, but now we've got sunshine out. I'm gonna go spend some time with my daughter and my family, cook some chicken, cook some corn, and have yourselves a great night, and we'll see you in the next video.